Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And today I got for you another episode of the biggest robberies in boxing, which is a series on my channel where I rewatch and rescore controversial fights of the past. And this episode is, of course, on Chris Eubank Sr. versus Nigel Benn, the rematch, which took place back in 1993. Obviously, their sons, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, are fighting in a couple of days. And I thought, what better time to make an episode of this iconic rivalry than now? I've never seen this fight before, so I'm going in there blind, but I have heard that most believe that Ben should have won this fight. Even Chris Eubank Sr. believes so, and he admits it outright. I find that very classy of him. Not a lot of fighters can admit something like that, so respect to Senior, but enough chit chat. Let's get to round one. Now, in round one, both of these guys landed, multiple shots on each other. Ben imposed himself on Eubank and landed the more significant shots. He closed the gap and got in close, which is where he does his best work, right? Eubank clearly wants to stay on the outside and punish Ben on his way in, but Ben clearly executed his game plan better. So I would have to give round one to Ben. Round two, Eubank started off really strong. He was sharp and he was letting his hands go, which deterred Ben from doing the same. But Nigel Benn rallied in the final 90 seconds. He landed the more telling shots, and overall the quality of his work was just better. So I gave round two to Nigel Benn. Now in round three, it was a good round for both. Just like the second round, Eubank started better. He found a home for his straight right and caught Ben multiple times with the left hook, but Ben rallied late and landed his own sets of shots. However, I do like Eubank's work better in this round, so he wins the round for me. Round 4 was a strong round for Nigel Benn as he hurt Eubank with the right hand. I didn't really find an argument for Eubank to win this round at all, so Nigel Benn comfortably wins this round. Round 5 was a fun round. Eubank tried to blitz Benn right from the go, but Nigel Benn turned it around and he had Eubank on the ropes for a couple of seconds there. But the rest of the round was controlled by Eubank, so he wins this round. So going on to round 6. This was another round where Eubank wins most of the round, but Ben finishes really strong. Eubank found a lot of success when he threw 2 or 3 punches. His 1-2 in particular landed several times, as well as his uppercuts. He even hurt Ben, I believe. So Eubank wins this round for me, and Ben got a point deducted for low blows. So this is actually a 10-8 round for Eubank. Going on to round 7, this was a close round. Nobody landed anything significant. So it's hard for me to give the edge to somebody, but Ben did manage to cut the distance and he outworked Eubank in the clinches, so he just about nixed this round for me. But this was a close round. Round 8 was similar to round 7. I find Eubank tends to be static during clinches, and Ben is just out there throwing punches whenever and wherever he can. Ben outworked and outlands Eubank, so he wins this round just like round 7. Now going on to round 9. Ben landed a couple of clean, compact hooks to Eubank's jaw that stood out to me. I can't say Eubank landed anything eye-catching. He keeps lunging in and smothering his shots, so I gave this round to Ben. Now moving on to round 10, I gave this round to Nigel Benn, and that's because he hurt Eubank with a leaping left hook, and he ultimately just landed the more effective punches. Eubank did land his own couple shots as well that might have even buzzed Nigel Benn, but Nigel just refused to let up and he went right back at Eubank and went to work immediately. Now going to round 11, this was a close round where Eubank finally came out and fought with some urgency. But once again, it's another one of those rounds where Eubank is handily ahead, but his defense just plummets in the last 30 seconds of the fight or of the round, and Ben would just land 3 or 4 flush shots, and Ben would just close really strong. Luckily for Eubank, I believe he's done just enough to secure the round, but this was a swing round, I'm not gonna lie. Moving on to the final round, round 12. Ben had Eubank hurt to start the round, but for most of the round, Eubank upped the tempo and wouldn't stop punching. But it was sloppy and messy. Ben may have been outworked and perhaps outlanded, but his accuracy was far higher and his punches clearly had more effect. So he wins this round for me. And that's it. That's all 12 rounds rewatched and rescored. And it was a great fight, not as action packed or as intense as the first meeting 3 years prior, but still very entertaining. And my final scorecard reads 115, 112 for Nigel Benn. So yes, I do believe that this was a robbery, because looking at the total amount of rounds won, I had it 8-4 for Nigel Benn. That is a pretty wide margin if you ask me, and that is I think that calls for a robbery. Now, admittedly, most of the rounds were very competitive and close. I guess it's just one of those fights where you judge based on your preference. A lot of the times I did give Ben the round for simply outworking Eubank in the clinch. Now, some may overlook those shots he was landing and deem them, I don't know, if ineffective. Some might prefer Eubank's sharpshooting from the outside compared to Ben's short, compact work on the inside, right? But for me personally, I feel I have the ability to look at both sides and judge fairly and unbiasedly. And in this fight, I just happen to believe that Nigel Benn did a better job executing his game plan. He landed the more significant shots, and he did a great job getting in his preferred fighting distance. Both absolute warriors, extremely resilient, gritty, tough, and skilled. You could see the intent in both men, and you could see neither of them were gonna accept defeat. It's rare that you see both men get hurt, but neither let up. You know what I mean? Every time Eubank was hurt, he tried to fight back immediately. And the same with Nigel Benn. They didn't want the other to build any sort of momentum. And that takes an insane amount of mental resilience and courage. So big up to these two legends. It was an awesome fight. And I can't wait for their sons to settle the score, because as far as I'm concerned, Eubank and Ben are tied at 1 apiece. So if you're interested in my breakdown of Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn that is happening on Saturday, I got a video out for that, so check that out if you wish. But yeah, that's all for me. What do you think of the fight? In your opinion, was Nigel Benn robbed? All right, leave it all down in the comments. I'd like to thank everyone for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I hope you have a lovely day.